Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you recovered from yesterday's rather long podcast. I remember my English teacher, Mrs. Davis, who was a wonderful teacher, once called me verbose, and she probably wasn't wrong in hindsight. I did an interview yesterday about the fast-moving and fluid events in Gabon, the failed coup. When I got on, it wasn't clear it was going to fail. But I said a number of things. One of the things I said was the captain has been out for a few months now, and that we're watching a very dynamic situation unfold. And indeed, we continue to watch a dynamic situation unfold as long as he's absent, I would have thought. And then I drew a correlation between Gabon, Sudan, and the DR Congo, and I said what we're watching across this continent, whether it's Gabon, Sudan, or DR Congo, is a kind of tipping point moment. I certainly think that Gabon, the street is not powerful enough to unseat the president, so therefore you would expect something like we saw yesterday. Sudan, the street is obviously on fire. The question is, can they sustain it? And in the DR Congo, we've got another very fluid situation, and Kabila so far has managed to keep a lid on the street. The question is, can he, in the event that he announces his Dauphin as the winner, in a situation where it's widely expected that the Shadari only got 20% of the vote, and my point is, given that he had the power of incumbency, 20% is a single-digit number. I also participated with Sami Zedan. It's a pleasure to have caught up with him frequently in the last few days about Zimbabwe's land reform. That link is also on the website. Political reflections. Gabon's government spokesperson told RFI that 4 mutineers had been arrested and 1 has fled, and said they were a group of jokers. And I think, it's the French are somewhere in the background, as is Jean Ping, as is the president's half-brother. But clearly it's not a sustainable situation with the president absent. He should, of course, have built himself a hospital, something that very few African leaders have done. Trump was never a peerless or even a particularly skillful deal maker. He made his way in the world as an indefatigable self-promoter, a marketing confection, and a human billboard who licensed his name to buildings and products paid for by others, Tim O'Brien. On the 12th of November last year, I wrote a piece about Saudi Arabia, and I mentioned that the king is called the custodian of the 2 holy mosques. And I was referencing MBS, who is the alleged owner of Leonardo da Vinci's Salvatore Mundi, which is a painting of Christ as Salvator Mundi, Saviour of the world, dated to circa 1500. The painting shows Jesus in Renaissance dress giving a benediction with his right hand raised and 2 fingers extended, while holding a transparent rock crystal orb in his left hand. The rock crystal orb, of course, reappeared during Trump's visit to the Desert Kingdom. The painting at that time was in the Louvre in Abu Dhabi, which I visited. It was very beautiful. And I said it was there because the optics of his $450 million purchase did not sit well with being the son and heir to the kingdom. And that's the reference to the 2 holy mosques, after all. And then I came across this extraordinary investigative journalism in Narrative by Jay Kotka. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman appears to have lost the world's most expensive painting. The Leonardo da Vinci masterpiece, Salvator Mundi, may hold the key to the Trump-Russia investigation, and the artwork itself could be evidence of collusion. Leonardo da Vinci's last masterpiece was to be unveiled on September the 18th at the spellbinding New Louvre in Abu Dhabi, but the exhibit was put on a temporary hold amid the rumors that the painting was lost. The art world has become increasingly alarmed. After all, Salvator Mundi is the most expensive artwork ever sold. Nobody outside the immediate Arab hierarchy knows where it is, said the Da Vinci scholar Martin Kemp to the Times. Questions are being raised. First, why did the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, an art novice, buy the masterpiece? Secondly, why did he overpay for it by $300 million? Even for the stupendously wealthy Prince Mohammed bin Salman, that's not just a simple rounding error. How do you misplace a $450 million painting anyway? We can also reveal Special Counsel Robert Mueller is investigating both the buyer and the seller of the Da Vinci masterpiece as part of the Trump-Russia investigation. We can't make this up. All the intrigue suits Salvator Mundi's already storied past well, but as I write this, no one has seen the rare masterpiece in over a year, and its exact whereabouts have been unknown for over 100 days. Da Vinci is said to have painted the Salvator Mundi, which literally translates to Saviour of the World, as a male counterpart to his Mona Lisa, and a homage to his other Christ masterpiece, The Last Supper, sits in Italy, and which I've seen, pretty extraordinary too. The result of those intersecting ideas is an eerie portrait of Jesus Christ in a blue Renaissance robe, offering benediction with his right hand raised while holding a glass orb in his left. Dmitry Rybolovlev's story is typical of many Russian oligarchs. He made his fortune as a potash miner until the Kremlin bought him out, sending him into a friendly exile. He chose the Grimaldi House of Monaco to set up shop. He bought the luxurious penthouse La Belle Epoque on Monaco's famous seaside cliffs, the AC Monaco football team, 10% in the Bank of Cyprus, and allegedly an extensive network of corruptible judges, ministers, and other officials. He also met Swiss art dealer Yves Bouvier, from whom he bought about $2 billion in art. Officially paid Bouvier 2% commission per painting, but later found out that the Swiss art dealer was also acting for the seller, marking up prices, pocketing the margin along with both buyers and sellers' commissions. This is how Rybolovlev came to own the Salvator Mundi for $127 million, instead of its valued $80 million. Since 2013, the now $127 million Salvator Mundi has been hanging in Rybolovlev's penthouse in New York City. Sees no shame in the $47 million lost in the purchase, and it wouldn't be the first time someone accused him of overpaying. In addition to several corruption investigations in Monaco and Europe, he's also under investigation by Robert Mueller for, listen to this, the $95 million purchase of Donald Trump's home in Palm Beach in 2006, which Trump had bought 4 years earlier for $41 million. There was no market reason for the $54 million markup except to save Trump from another bankruptcy. Close to Putin, regularly mixes affairs of state with personal business. In 2016, he met Trump twice in the final days of the campaign. Both men deny the meetings took place, but radar tracking reveals their planes coincided on airport tarmacs in both Charlotte, North Carolina, and Las Vegas just days before the election. And then talking about the Trump Tower meeting between Donald Trump Jr., the Russian lawyer, and the significant offer of dirt on Hillary Clinton, to which Don Jr. famously responded, "I love it." More significant meeting took place at Trump Tower 3 weeks later, which has received far less coverage, yet it may be the most important evidence of collusion. Robert Mueller has uncovered. Eric Prince arranged that meeting, and he is obviously a gun for hire for the Chinese and Emiratis, but saying he played a pivotal yet unofficial role for the Trump transition. George Nader was in that meeting, who was acting as an emissary for MBS and MBZ. And Joel Zamel, the Australian-born Israeli founder of Psy Group and an expert in social media manipulation. Nader spoke about how the Saudi and Emirati princes were eager to help your father win the election as president, and that the Psy Group was particularly successful at social media manipulation, and that the two crown princes would bankroll a multi-million-dollar plan drawn up by Zamel to help elect his father president. Psy Group had figured out how to shift public sentiment by creating fake news, publishing it on fake news sites, and then amplifying it through a network of 5,000 fake social media accounts. The company's side hustle was providing services in the dark arts of honey trapping, hacking, and blackmail for a fee. $300 million, that's the incredible profit Rybolovlev made on the sale of Salvatore Mundi. $300 million is also the amount MBS accidentally overpaid for the artwork. Laundering hundreds of millions of dollars in full view of a global audience may not seem like the smartest move, but the facts support this. May have been what the two crown princes and Dmitry Rybolovlev tried to do. Put up the masterpiece for auction through Christie's in November 2017. Estimated price for Lot 9B was between $80 and $120 million. Christie's was stunned when bidding quickly surged past $80 million in just seconds, and then just as effortlessly over $100 million. Two anonymous bidders continuously outbid each other, not stopping until they had run the price up to $450.3 million, making it the single most expensive work of art ever sold at auction. In the ensuing days, listen to this, the New York Times unmasked Crown Prince MBS as the masterpiece's real buyer, but the identity of the second bidder stayed hidden for months. In March, the Daily Mail revealed the counter bidder was, check this out, Abu Dhabi Crown Prince MBZ. The princes claimed they had no idea the other was bidding and dismissed the whole thing as a mistake. Up until now, Mueller's focus has been squarely on Russian collusion, but as citizens from other countries are implicated, it seems the special counsel has widened his purview from just collusion with Russia to collusion with a multi-nation alliance of at least 4 countries, including Russia, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Israel. It's just extraordinary. And it's concluding by saying we need to wait for Mueller's final report before we reach any conclusions. But if Leonardo's Salvatore Mundi proves to be a key which helps unlock Trump Russia, savior of the world, could prove to be nothing short of prophetic. This is a photograph of Rybolovlev, who chose the Grimaldi House of Monaco to set up shop. This is a photograph of George Nader with MBS. The basic idea is that the sale was a $300 million money laundering scheme that happened in broad daylight. I take you back to the 7th of August 2017, when I said any financial expert will tell you that Trump's financial affairs are a smoking gun. Deutsche Bank loans were surely mirror transactions, I said, where Deutsche Bank was a commission agent interposed between Trump and the real lender. All those sales where Trump proclaimed himself a genius because they were so off-market, we would all be incredulous, were essentially just that, incredible. And I said there is a prima facie case here and it's in plain sight. And Trump knows it, and that's why he's been demanding Al Pacino-style demands of loyalty from the likes of the now dispensed with FBI Director James Comey. Extraordinary, isn't it? Really great journalism there. Trump administration has downgraded the diplomatic status of the European Union's delegation to the United States. You can't make this up. After the delegation noticed that the EU's Washington ambassador had not been invited to certain events late last year, officials organizing the state funeral for President Bush provided final confirmation to EU diplomats that the status of the representation had in fact been downgraded. Pepe Escobar has written a tremendous piece in Asia Times. Chinese scholar offers insight into Beijing's strategic mindset, and saying geopolitics may be an Anglo invention, arguably by Sir Harold Mackinder, who wrote a book actually when he came to Kenya when he was about 20 and walked from somewhere like Mtito and Day all the way up Mount Kenya and down again. Saying that the Chinese have been studying geopolitics for centuries. Wen Mu introduces us to the concept of geopolitics as philosophy on the tip of a knife, but it's mostly about philosophy, not the knife. It's a really outstanding article, well worth reading. And then listen to this. In a nutshell, China is key for the equilibrium of Eurasia. In Europe, the fragmented zone originates in the center. In Asia, it is around China. So that presents China as the natural barycenter of Asia. We now have Dongfeng 21D, Dongfeng 26 missiles. These are aircraft carrier killers. We attack and sink one of their aircraft carriers, let them suffer 5,000 casualties. Attack and sink two carriers, 10,000 casualties. Let's see if the US is afraid or not. The US Navy sailed in disputed South China Sea ahead of trade talks with Beijing near the South China Sea in what China called a provocation. A USS McCampbell Freedom of Navigation operation to challenge excessive maritime claims in the Paracel Island chain. 15th of October, I wrote War is Coming. Ahead of these truce talks, you remember on the 10th of December, I wrote a peace truce dinner, Hue, and how they all broke out into spontaneous applause thereafter. Wilbur Ross says US tariffs pressure China's ability to create jobs, to stave off social unrest. And that goes back to something else I wrote, Tariff Wars, Who Blinks First?